You ever wake up and realize someone just stole part of your life with a chainsaw? I did. At 7:06 a.m. on a Wednesday, I walked out with my coffee, expecting robins and peace. Instead, I found the HOA president, Delilah Thornfield, barking orders at a demolition crew, sledgehammers swinging, chainsaws roaring, tearing down the oak fence my late wife and I built with our own hands. Public lake access, she declared, like a queen granting peasants water. But I wasn't a peasant, and this wasn't public. It was my land, my memories, my fence. And she didn't just rip through cedar and soil, she bulldozed the last physical thing my wife and I created together. Delilah didn't ask. She commanded. In that designer pantsuit, barking like a beauty pageant dictator, she pointed at Sarah's memorial bench and said it was obstructing community pathways. I don't remember dropping the mug, but I remember the sound of porcelain cracking like my heart. Here's what made it worse, her smug smile, the kind that says, I know you can't stop me. But Delilah didn't know who she was messing with. She thought I was just a grieving widower in a flannel shirt. What she didn't know? I spent 30 years as a property surveyor. I know land, I know lines, and I know the law better than her overpriced wine club ever will. So while she was building her $85,000 community path, which just so happened to line up perfectly with her private dock, I was pulling plat maps and tax records from my garage. Because I had a plan, a legal plan, a slow, cold, meticulous kind of revenge, the kind that ends in deed transfers and public humiliation. Stick with me, because over the next 45 minutes you're going to see how Delilah Thornfield accidentally gave me a free $115,000 upgrade, and how I turned it into full legal ownership of the entire lakefront. Oh, and halfway through, I'll ask you to type a phrase in the moments that might just flip this algorithm on its smug little head. Let's begin with the first rule of HOA warfare. Never swing first at a man who knows where the property lines really are. 3 days before the fence came down, Delilah Thornfield sent me a letter on cream linen paper, official HOA letterhead, gold embossed seal, all the fake formality of a royal decree. Mr. Whitman, your fence exceeds the new height restriction guidelines. Please reduce to 4 feet or face $500 weekly fines. Non-negotiable. D. Thornfield, HOA president. I read it 3 times, thinking it was a joke. That fence had been approved 15 years ago. Same height, same location, same approval stamped by the very HOA she now ran like a petty dictatorship. I called her. Big mistake. Her voice dripped sugar and venom. Old approvals don't matter anymore, sweetie. We're modernizing. Grandfather clauses are outdated, just like your fence. I tried reasoning. She giggled. You've got 30 days to comply, or we start seizing assets. Have a blessed day. That was the moment I realized she wasn't interested in compliance. She was interested in conquest. Delilah didn't want to enforce rules. She wanted to rewrite the map. Her mansion across the road had everything. Imported marble, glass everything, security gates like Fort Knox. But no lake access. That was her Achilles heel. And my dock, my peaceful weather-worn little dock, was all she saw when she looked out her $1-million windows. The next morning, orange spray paint appeared on my property. Not just around the fence, on my mailbox, my rose bushes, even the damn bird bath. A neon trail of trespass. Taped to my front door was a new note, surveying for compliance modifications. Work begins Monday. Thornfield Construction Management. Let me pause here. That name, Thornfield Construction Management, didn't exist last month, but suddenly it was the contractor for every HOA improvement on the street. I Googled it. No website, no office, just a P.O. box and a listed CEO named, surprise, Delilah Thornfield. The woman had created her own construction company to award herself HOA contracts and bill us for it, and now she was using it to claim my land. But Delilah's fatal flaw wasn't greed, it was arrogance. She didn't think anyone would fight back. She thought a man who lost his wife would roll over and fade. She didn't realize I'd been quietly documenting everything, every spray mark, every crew truck, every inch of soil disturbed. The war had started, and I wasn't just playing defense, I was baiting her. Monday morning hit like a demolition derby. At exactly 7:01 a.m., diesel engines roared to life on my front lawn. Delilah arrived in a silk robe and Gucci sunglasses like she was directing a film. Her crew, 5 guys in reflective vests and unmarked trucks, started ripping into my fence like they were rescuing buried treasure. Except this wasn't treasure. This was sacred. This was Sarah's. I stood on my porch, heart pounding, watching strangers tear apart the boards we nailed in place together during her last summer alive. She was too weak to hammer, but she'd insisted on helping. She'd held every board while I drove in the nails. "Something permanent," she whispered, "so part of us stays here." I built that fence to hold in our memories, and now this woman, this manicured tyrant in platform heels, was turning those memories into mulch. I yelled. I waved my old surveyor's license. One of the workers shrugged. "We were told this is HOA land." Delilah stood with her clipboard, watching me like I was a mosquito she planned to swat with a cease and desist. "Public lake access," she chirped, pointing toward the destruction. "You're welcome." But my eyes weren't on the fence anymore. They were on what came next. Behind the torn boards, her crew had already started laying decorative stonework, professional-grade landscaping, ornamental lighting, water runoff channels. This wasn't a path. It was a private promenade, snaking directly from her back gate to the water. And here's where my instincts kicked in. Surveyors don't just see land, we read it. The lay of the soil, the history of erosion, the clues hidden in the curves. And what I saw was wrong. The path wasn't following any easement. It wasn't skirting boundaries. It was crossing them. She was building on my land. So I went inside, poured a second cup of coffee, and pulled out my old gear. Tripod, scope, range F, Ender. They still worked. Muscle memory took over as I ran a quick boundary check, and that's when I saw it. The line they were building on, it was 15 feet inside my property. Delilah Thornfield was about to hand me the most expensive apology in HOA history. She just didn't know it yet. By noon that same day, the pathway was halfway done. Her crew was working like it was the final round of a reality show, laying pavers, installing low-voltage lighting, trenching in irrigation lines. I stood at my kitchen window watching thousands of dollars go into a project she was building on land that legally belonged to me. And she was doing it all with the confidence of a woman who thought paperwork was just a suggestion. But I wasn't sipping coffee anymore. I was building a case. I dug up 30 years of tax records, every property assessment, every receipt. And there it was, clear as daylight. I had been taxed on those 15 feet of waterfront land every year since 1987. The same strip of soil where her granite walkway now shimmered like a red carpet to the lake. But I needed more, so I called the city's planning office and asked about permits. You ready for the punchline? There weren't any. Not a single construction permit had been filed for that project. No soil grading approval, no landscaping review, not even an environmental impact check. In a lakefront zone, that's a felony waiting to happen. So I filed a formal complaint, and then I called every neighbor who hated her, which was most of them. By 3 p.m., a city inspector named Johnson arrived, middle-aged, sunburned, and absolutely thrilled to investigate something that wasn't potholes or sidewalk cracks. "Morning, Mr. Whitman. Heard you've got a construction party happening without an invitation." I walked him to the site. Delilah saw us coming and immediately switched on the charm. "Oh, hello, Inspector. We're just beautifying the neighborhood." Johnson nodded once, then knelt down with his laser tape. "Beautifying, huh? Where are your permits?" Delilah blinked. "They're being processed." "By who? The permit fairy?" She didn't laugh, but I did. Quietly. Johnson walked the path, too. Hen stopped cold. "Ma'am, this is private land. You're in violation of municipal codes, zoning regulations, and state-run shoreline protections. Work stops now." He pulled out a massive orange sign and slapped it on her equipment trailer. "Stop work order." In big, all-caps letters Delilah couldn't flirt her way out of. She stood frozen, mascara twitching. "This isn't over," she hissed at me. I leaned in, calm and steady. "No, Mrs. Thornfield, this is just beginning." 2 days after the stop work order, a certified letter showed up taped to my door like a court summons. Thick paper, black ink, the kind of thing that screams, "We want to look official." Inside, emergency HOA meeting, mandatory attendance. Tonight, 7 o'clock p.m., Community Center. Agenda, just one item. Motion to fine Garrett Whitman $2,000 for obstruction of community improvement efforts. I laughed, out loud. She was actually trying to fine me for reporting her illegal construction. Delilah wasn't just doubling down, she was going full tyrant. The arrogance was Olympic level, but fine. If she wanted a show, I'd bring the fireworks. At 6:55, I walked into the community center. Beige walls, plastic chairs, that weird smell of stale coffee and forced civility. Delilah sat at the front table like she was chairing a Supreme Court hearing, flanked by her 4 loyal lapdogs. Her smile said, "Welcome." Her eyes said, "Die slowly." "We're here to discuss Mr. Whitman's obstructionist behavior," she announced, voice dripping with false concern. "His actions have delayed vital improvements and cost this community over $15,000. A soft hand raised near the back. Mrs. Patterson, 82 years old, retired librarian, and the closest thing our neighborhood had to moral authority. "Excuse me," she said gently, "but Garrett reported illegal construction. That's not obstruction, that's civic duty." A ripple of murmurs followed. Delilah didn't flinch. "He's destabilizing the neighborhood, creating conflict, driving down property values." That was my cue. I stood slowly and pulled out my phone. "You mean like this?" I hit play. A recording of Delilah's voice filled the room. "Actually, this land was never really yours. Adverse possession laws. We've been using this area for years." Gasps. Delilah's face went bloodless. "That's an illegal recording," she snapped. "Michigan's a one-party consent state," I said. "Totally legal to record my own conversations." Silence. But she wasn't done. "Oh no. Regardless of legality," she barked, "Mr. Whitman has caused damage to this HOA. I motion to fine him $2,000 and pursue lien proceedings if unpaid." Mrs. Patterson slammed her cane. "You're out of your mind." Then came the kill shot. I held up a folder. "Let's talk about those community improvements. Because your company, Thornfield Construction Management, has been billing the HOA for months, and based on state business records, that company didn't exist until after you became president." Delilah blinked. Once, twice. I smiled. "You built a private empire with public money. You ever watch someone implode in real time? It doesn't happen all at once. First, there's the silence, then the blinking, then the scrambling for words that never come fast enough. That's what Delilah Thornfield looked like when I opened that folder. "Payments," I said, holding up the documents, "from our HOA account to your construction company, the one you created 3 weeks after you became president. Here's the routing info. Here's your name on the business license. You've been writing checks to yourself under the guise of beautifying our neighborhood." The room gasped like a courtroom drama. One of her own board members muttered, "Wait, what?" But I wasn't finished. According to the HOA's own expense reports, Thornfield Construction Management has billed over $27,000 for consultations before a single shovel hit dirt. And that's not even counting materials and labor. You've been bleeding this neighborhood dry. Delilah tried to recover. "That's standard practice. I'm providing valuable services at a discounted rate." Mrs. Patterson leaned forward. "You're the president. You're also the contractor. That's called conflict of interest. It's unethical, and in some cases, criminal." That's when Winston Rodriguez, our neighborhood handyman, raised his hand from the back. "Wait, who's been approving the checks for her work?" Delilah's voice faltered. "The board." "No," Winston replied, holding up another sheet. I looked it up. The HOA bylaws require 2 non-interested board signatures for any expense over $5,000. You signed every one of them yourself. There's no second signature. Her head snapped toward him like a snake sensing heat. Then came the final nail. I flipped to the last page. According to the Michigan HOA Act, using HOA funds for personal enrichment without disclosure constitutes embezzlement, and using your position to claim ownership of someone else's land? That's fraud. I've already forwarded these records to my attorney. Delilah stood, face pale, voice tight. "This is a coordinated smear campaign." "No," Mrs. Patterson snapped. "This is a reckoning." The room erupted, voices yelling. Someone shouted, "We want a vote." Another neighbor demanded her removal. Even her lapdogs looked shaken. No one wanted to go down with her. Delilah tried to regain control, but it was slipping. Fast. So she did what cornered egomaniacs always do. She escalated. 3 days after the HOA meeting exploded, I found a glossy flyer stuck under every single door in the neighborhood, title in bold red letters, "Concerned Neighbors Meeting, Addressing the Mental Health Crisis on Willowbrook Lane." Subtitle? A compassionate conversation about grief, instability, and community well-being. I didn't need to read the fine print to know who it was about, but I did. Right there in black and white, beneath a picture of serene trees and a dove flying out of a birdcage, it read, "Recent erratic behavior by Mr. Garrett Whitman, including shouting at HOA workers, paranoia regarding shared land, and signs of psychological decline, has prompted serious concerns among residents. A loving community must act when one of its own may be struggling after a profound personal loss." She wasn't just deflecting blame, she was weaponizing my grief. Winston came running over with wide eyes. "Garrett, she's telling people you've been screaming at trees, that you're hallucinating, that you've been wandering the street at night in your bathrobe." I looked down. I was wearing my bathrobe. He added, "She even claimed you tried to attack one of her workers. People are whispering. APS might show up." They did. That afternoon, an investigator from Adult Protective Services knocked on my door. I invited her in. She asked questions, took notes, and after 30 minutes of polite conversation, she leaned forward, lowered her voice, and said, "Mr. Whitman, I'm so sorry. Someone is clearly trying to manufacture a case against you." She left with nothing to report. But the damage wasn't about evidence. It was about perception, whispers, rumors, doubt, and Delilah was flooding the neighborhood with it like sewage from a broken main. That evening, I got 6 calls from local realtors, all offering cash for my distressed property. One even said, "We heard your play, wanting to move for mental health reasons. We can make the process easy." Easy, like burying a body. The final straw came the next morning. A for sale sign was planted on my lawn. Not by me, it was real. It had my name on it and a phone number for a local agency. I called it. "Mr. Whitman," the receptionist said, chipper as sunshine, "your HOA president told us you wanted an expedited listing." Delilah wasn't just playing games anymore. She was playing God. That night, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I unlocked Sarah's office. Same scent of lavender, same forensic accounting books she used when she hunted white-collar criminals for the government. Her reading glasses still rested on the desk, like she'd just stepped out to make tea. I stood in the doorway for a long time. This room had been a mausoleum for my heart. Now, it was my war room. "Okay, sweetheart," I whispered. "Let's catch another one." I powered up her old computer. It booted like a loyal soldier, her software, still active, and with everything Delilah had left lying around like breadcrumbs, it didn't take long. First, I traced Thornfield Construction Management's LLC records. The company had been incorporated, dissolved, and reincorporated 4 times in 6 years. Always in luxury neighborhoods. Always after she got herself elected HOA president. But it was her past addresses that sealed it. In 3 previous communities, she'd orchestrated massive beautification projects that funneled tens of thousands of dollars into fake consulting fees, all while creating structures that just happened to increase the value of her property. When the heat turned up, she sold and disappeared. She didn't just do this to me, she'd perfected it. But the final blow came thanks to my old life as a surveyor. I pulled the original 1987 plat maps of our neighborhood, the ones I personally helped draft as a rookie out of college. Then I compared them to the current online database. Something didn't match. The official county records showed my land ending 15 feet short of the lake. But I remembered installing the original stone markers myself, at the high water line. So I pulled historical satellite images from Google Earth. 2005, 2010, 2017. There they were, 3 rectangular stones along the shoreline, exactly where we marked the boundary in '87. And no, her walkway curved right over them. But the best part? Tax records showed I'd been paying yearly assessments on that exact 15-foot strip for decades. That land, legally and financially mine, which means everything she built, every granite slab, every light fixture, every brick on her smug little path, mine now. She built herself a private waterfront access with her own money on my land, and under Michigan law, that makes it my property, permanently. The next morning, I filed a quiet title action in county court, a legal nuke that officially reaffirmed my full property boundaries based on original surveys, satellite evidence, and decades of tax payments. It wasn't just my land now, it was indisputable. And the best part? Every single improvement Delilah built, every path light, every polished stone, was legally mine under state property law. But I wasn't stopping there. That night, I printed every piece of evidence I had, her shell companies, the forged HOA contracts, the fake consulting invoices, photos of her mansion partially built on public land, and a lovely photo collage of her illegal walkway trespassing on my soil. I made 25 folders and hand-delivered them to every mailbox on the block. One neighbor said, "This reads like a Netflix docuseries." I smiled. Working title, Queen of Fraud, The HOA Diaries. By the weekend, word had spread like wildfire. The community called a special meeting, this time without Delilah. They didn't just want her out, they wanted her investigated. The walls were closing in, and fast, but the moment that made my spine tingle? When Channel 7's investigative reporter, David Chin, knocked on my door. He was doing a segment on suburban HOA corruption, and Delilah's antics were now Exhibit A. "We'd like to run your story," he said. "All of it. The grief, the fraud, the revenge." I nodded. "Just don't make me look too nice. I enjoyed this." The interview aired on Friday. Viewers across the state watched Delilah's unraveling in high def. Her claims of community service, shattered. Her lake access improvements, shown to benefit only her. Her personality, compared to a Bond villain with a landscaping fetish. And when they rolled the footage of her HOA voice recording admitting to adverse possession on land she didn't own, let's just say, her phone stopped ringing. Her house, once a glowing monument to arrogance, became a mausoleum of silence. Realtor signs appeared in her windows a week later. But here's what I want you, the viewer, to take away from this. HOAs aren't kingdoms. And no one, not even the Delilah Thornfields of the world, gets to play God with your memories. So if you've ever felt powerless in your neighborhood, say it with me. No king in the cul-de-sac. Say it again, louder. No king in the cul-de-sac. And hit that comment section with it twice if you're done letting fake power bully real people. 3 weeks later, the county court ruled in my favor. The judge's words were pure poetry. Mr. Whitman's documentation is extensive, verified, and historically consistent. His quiet title claim is upheld. All disputed land belongs to him, permanently. Just like that, Delilah's $85,000 lakefront pathway officially became mine. And the court's ruling didn't just settle the property boundary, it opened the door to civil damages. My lawyer smiled like a man who just found a gold nugget in his lunchbox. "We're filing next week," he said. "Misappropriation of funds, defamation, harassment, and constructive fraud. Total claim, $275,000. But Delilah didn't even show up to the final HOA vote. That night, the community voted unanimously to remove her as president. No defenders, no abstentions. She didn't walk out. She vanished. Her house went dark, curtains closed. Then one morning, a sold sign appeared. Rumor was she left town in the middle of the night. As for me, I rebuilt the oak fence, the one Sarah and I made. Same wood, same design. Only this time, I engraved something into the final board, a quiet message for the next generation. This land was loved, not stolen. The neighbors helped me install it. Mrs. Patterson brought lemonade and a folding chair. Winston hauled lumber with his teenage son. It wasn't just about rebuilding wood and nails. It was about reclaiming peace. And one morning, as I stood on my deck with coffee in hand, I saw something I hadn't in a long time. Neighbors walking by, waving again. One even shouted, "You're a damn legend, Garrett." But I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who lost everything once and refused to lose what little I had left. So if you're watching this thinking, it's just a fence, or it's just a sidewalk, you're missing the point. It's never just about the property. It's about dignity. It's about memory. It's a being out, not letting petty tyrants rewrite the story you built with your own hands. So remember this, if they tear down your fence, build a wall of truth. If they weaponize your grief, load your facts like arrows. And if they try to rule your block like a kingdom, you show up with your voice, your proof, and your people. Because on my street and in my story, there's no king in the cul-de-sac, only neighbors.